Time for our week 4 whiteboard, and want to address some fan mail off the top. Yes, I am tall. Yes, the ceiling is short. And no, we are not going to call this whiteboard wasted, at least not officially. All right, let's get into it. We got a game between the Bears and the Raiders. Both teams 1-2. Both teams need to win. Back in that 325 spot the Bears were in last week. Kind of like the late afternoon window. Bears aren't in it a whole lot. Vegas, a 1-point spread over under 47.5. A little surprised Vegas is still favored. We'll see if that changes as all these Bears fans get to Vegas, start putting their money on the Bears. Last week, the Raiders lost to Washington 41-24. That game was actually a lot closer for most of the first half. It's actually 10-10 for a while. And then Vegas' special teams sort of let things get away, and the Commanders ended up running away with it. Take a look at our EPA per play matchup. When the Bears defense goes up against the Raiders offense, neither unit has been particularly good. They both rank 26 respectively. And then same thing on the other side. It's a weirdly even matchup. And you look at the Raiders defensively, 19th so far, and the Bears offense also 19th. That's a big jump from last week, though, headed in the right direction. Take a look at the Raiders coaching staff. Pete Carroll, you know him, 74 years old, still going strong. He's been in the league. This is now his 4th NFL team he has coached. 171, 122-1. Even Ben Johnson brought this up in his press conference yesterday. Pete Carroll only has 4 losing seasons in 18 years coaching in the NFL. This is his 19th season now as an NFL head coach. Chip Kelly, we know him too. Of course, he was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State last year. They won the national championship. Has not called plays in the NFL since he was the head coach of the 49ers back in 2016, but I don't need to bring up what he and the Eagles and Nick Foles did to the Bears in 2013 when they were trying to make the playoffs. You remember that game. Patrick Graham is the defensive coordinator. He's actually been there for 4 years, retained twice. This is his 3rd head coach since he's been with the Raiders, but well-respected defensive coordinator. Tom McMahon has also been there, their special teams coordinator. He's in his 4th season with the Raiders, also retained under Pete Carroll. Last week, though, special teams, a big issue for the Raiders. We'll see if it decides something in this game because the Bears' special teams haven't exactly been great either. They allowed a 69-yard kickoff return to start the game last week against the Commanders. Deebo Samuel had that one, and then later in the game gave up a 90-yard punt return touchdown to Jalen Lane, the rookie out of Virginia Tech. So big issues in the return game for the Raiders last week. We'll see if the Bears can take advantage of that. They were better in their return game a week ago. In terms of who the Raiders have added and lost, of course, Geno Smith was their big acquisition in the offseason, coming over from Seattle, where Pete Carroll had him there. Jeremy Chin at safety. Alex Kappa added. I have him listed as center. He's actually been playing guard for the Raiders, though. Eric Stokes, the cornerback, added. Players the Raiders lost. Nate Hobbs, he went over to the Packers. Robert Spillane, linebacker I've always liked for a while. He's no longer there. And then Christian Wilkins was the big one. They signed that guy to an over $100 million contract a year ago. He ended up only playing 5 games for them, and they cut him loose. Some weird circumstances around that one. But they do not have Christian Wilkins in the middle of their defense anymore. Key draft picks. Ashton Jeanty was the big one. We're going to talk about that because the running game has not been good. But Ashton Jeanty drafted highly in the 1st round. Bears were interested in him too. Of course, he went before Colston Loveland, who the Bears drafted. 2nd rounder, Jack Beck out of TCU, wide receiver. You're going to see him on the field a little bit. But it's actually their 4th rounder, Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee, who's earned a starting spot and has been their ex-receiver for the most part early on in this season. Let's talk Bears offense versus the Vegas defense first. And this is a big one. I just want to check in on a couple categories we know that Ben Johnson is paying attention to. But EPA per drop back, something Ben believes is an indicator of success, winning and losing in the NFL. The Bears are up to 10th with Caleb Williams early on in the season. That's huge. Meanwhile, Vegas' defense, 27th against drop back. So big advantage here, you would think, for the Bears to keep their momentum in the passing game going. Caleb Williams, big opportunity. Meanwhile, though, on the other side, Bears have not run the ball well. Their EPA per rush ranks 30th. And despite looking at the tape against the Commanders, it did not look like the Raiders could stop the run. Overall, they're actually third in EPA rush defensively so far in the season. So first couple games were a lot better. We'll see. I don't know. You got to think the Bears are going to still struggle to run the football in this game based on how things have been going. But checking in some other categories. Play action and under center percentage. Bears 5th in the league. So as we expected, running a lot of play action with Ben Johnson, a lot of under center, and their deep ball percentage. This is a big one. 1st in the league. Bears have been throwing it deep more than any other team in football. Yes, the Chicago Bears. That is real. That is happening. And most importantly, Caleb Williams is improving throwing the deep ball. Bears deep ball EPA is 11th. So they're having success doing it as well. Let's talk injuries, though, on this side of the ball, and it's getting there's some new ones this week. Of course, we knew DeAndre Swift was dealing with that leg injury last week, still on the injury report. I'm guessing he'll be okay. Cole Kmet, we got to watch this one. He popped up on the injury report Wednesday with a groin. He plays through pretty much everything, but we did not previously know about that groin injury, so we'll have to continue to watch that throughout the week. And then the big one, and this is the matchup I want to talk about too. So Darnell Wright is dealing with an elbow injury. What's super interesting about this, and this is the big matchup, right, against Max Crosby. Defensively, the Raiders, they have Max Crosby, and they also have Max Crosby. Not a lot of other special players, but Max Crosby you obviously have to account for, chip, bring double teams to. Darnell Wright injured his elbow last week, his right elbow, the one where he's got to punch with to the outside. So you got to think there might be some vulnerability here to the outside with Max Crosby. You want to bring him some help. But what's interesting about that is 2 years ago, the Raiders came to Soldier Field, Darnell Wright's rookie year, and guess what? He was basically playing one-armed in that game against Max Crosby because he had a left shoulder injury, and he did pretty well. So this is not the first time Darnell Wright's going up against Max Crosby with being limited in one of his arms. Now, that was actually the opposite arm. It was his inside arm. This is the outside. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout this game, assuming Darnell Wright is able to go. If he's not, we're expecting Theo Benedict to play right tackle. Very little experience if he has to go against Max Crosby. Either way, this is your key matchup to watch on this side of the ball. Let's move to the other side. When Vegas is going up against the Bears, D, so far, Vegas really struggling to run the ball, even worse than the Bears. I said the Bears rushing EPA was 30th. Despite drafting Ashton Jeanty, the Raiders are 32nd, dead last in the league so far running the ball. In terms of where they like to run the ball, opposite of the Bears. Bears have not been running it inside. They like to run it outside. At least that's where they've had success so far. Then that's where their tendencies have been. Raiders are the opposite. They've been running it inside, the 3rd most in the league, outside 30th most. They also like to throw the deep ball, though. Geno Smith will try to hit these receivers deep. They're 7th in the league right now in deep ball percentage. Right now, though, their offensive line has been a mess. Not been very good. Couple spots to watch here and here. DJ Glaze, their right tackle, has been struggling. He did not look good last week on the tape against the Commanders. And then just a sort of a weird situation going on here at right guard. Jackson Powers Johnson, who you guys know I liked last year coming out of Oregon, was really drafted to be their center. He's been playing right guard, where they also signed Alex Kappa in the offseason, the veteran. JPJ suffered a concussion a couple weeks ago, missed a game, and then was seemingly cleared to come back last week, but didn't play. And Pete Carroll gave a weird answer yesterday at his press conference about that whole situation, like he's competing for a job. So I don't really know what's going on with Jackson Powers Johnson, but they don't seem to be too thrilled with him at this point. And he apparently is in a competition to earn playing time. So at this point, I don't know if it's going to be Kappa or JPJ. What I do know is this offensive line has struggled. Last week, they could not protect Geno Smith, and they couldn't open up holes for Ashton Jeanty either. And watching the tape, I don't think it's Jeanty's fault. Jeanty still looks like the same talented running back we knew he was coming out of Boise State. So the Bears are going to have to be aware of that. Let's talk tight end health for the Raiders, too. Bowers has been dealing with a knee injury. The good news for the Raiders, bad news for the Bears, is Brock Bowers looked a lot better on film, I thought, against the Commanders in the week before. He looked extremely limited the week before against the Chargers. This did not look right in that Monday Night Football game to me. I thought he looked a lot healthier last week, and he should be good to go this week. Maybe he's completely over that. If he's got his mobility back, he's the big guy you got to watch in terms of weapons in the passing game. We know Geno Smith's going to throw him the ball a lot. And then Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end, second-round pick from a couple years ago, he suffered a very scary concussion last week against the Commanders, one of those fencing situations that everybody hates seeing. So he did not practice Wednesday. You got to think it's probably a long shot that he'll play this week, so they might be a little thinned out at tight end. Of course, with the Bears, they got their own issues. We know all about this. Bears have been dealing with it all season. Jalen Johnson's on IR. Kyler Gordon's still not practicing to this point unless he goes today for some reason. TJ Edwards, same thing at linebacker. So, and then you got Grady Jarrett still dealing with his knee injury. Pretty much the same picture defensively. Bears are going to have to continue playing with max effort to overcome these losses. Tremaine Edmonds had a huge week last week. He's got to step up. Once again, Noah Sewell's been doing an admirable job with TJ Edwards out. And same thing to Sean Wright against these receivers. Let's talk about these receivers a little bit for the Raiders. Trey Tucker, I was 1 year early on. He actually played. He came out of Cincinnati the same year that Tyler Scott did when the Bears drafted Scott in the 4th round. Tucker was the Raiders' 3rd round pick. I thought he was going to have a lot of success starting last year. All of a sudden, he's starting to take off now in his 3rd year. So that's a guy to watch. We'll see if Tyree Stevenson sticks with Tucker a lot, because to me, among the wide receivers, he's the scariest of the bunch. And then, yeah, I think ultimately, while these Jacoby Myers and the rookie Thornton out of Tennessee, they don't necessarily scare you as much, Geno Smith's still been trying to find a way to get the ball downfield. So this could be, from a fantasy perspective and even an entertainment perspective, a fun matchup to watch with both teams trying to go down the field with their struggling run games. We'll see how it all plays out. Bears need to get a win. We're going to Vegas. Hope to see you there. That's your whiteboard look at Week 4.